Everybody, or good night, good morning, good evening, good morning. Just thought I would do a quick little take on Muhammad's bar review by doing hotel reviews. This is something I got in today. It is the DC Icons Deadman figure, part of that new upcoming wave from DC Collectibles. Wave 1 that included Green Arrow, Batman, and Mr. Miracle. Pharaoh Black also already did a pretty thorough, comprehensive review of the figure already when he got those in. So I thought I would just do like some quick rundowns from an alternative take, that is, not to take anything away from what Pharaoh did. As you can see, the box art is pretty simplistic. A lot of beefs have been about the fact that the line really hasn't been well thought out as terms of the articulation. But the box art's kind of interesting. It kind of reminds me of stuff you would see with the figure arts import stuff, like what they do with Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon. It's just reminiscent of that to me, with the simplistic white background, the simple text with the iconography of the character right there in the middle. Same thing with Green Arrow with the little arrow right there where the O is. And I presume the same thing will hold true for Batman with probably the yellow bat oval, or even Mr. Miracle with something similar to that. Uh, Nothing on this side to speak of, and on the side here you kind of get Deadman's logo right here, icons right here, and number 2, which is Deadman's designation in the line. And on the back here, as you can probably tell as well, let me scoot back a little bit so you can see that all the figures that make up the first wave. Upcoming waves are going to include Superman, The Flash, Static Shock. I believe Green Lantern is going to be a deluxe. Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Lex Luthor is going to be in the line as well. Those are just some of the ones I remember off the top of my head. And full prototypes of the figures. Notice how you don't really see the accessories that come with them at all. One little thing I was also going to mention here is that you've got designed by Ivan Rice, and then sculpted by Dave Cortez. This one's interesting because, as you probably tell from the side here, that is, Deadman is meant to look exactly how he was depicted in Brightest Day, which kind of puts this line as a more designer-specific line, since Green Arrow came from Mike Grell's Longbow Hunters. Batman is meant to be depicted from how he looked in Adam Hughes' Last Right storyline. And I think Mr. Miracle is New 52 style. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on opening this up. While I'm doing this, let's give you some rundowns on Deadman's history, that is. The character was created in 1967 by Arnold Drake and Carmine Infantino, but he was quickly taken over by Neil Adams, who drew the majority of Deadman's appearances in the 60s in the Strange Adventures comic title. Deadman didn't really catch on too much. He was pretty much relegated to the realms of being a supporting character. He made a few appearances in Batman, the Brave and the Bold comic. I think he was even in a few issues of Detective Comics and Adventure Comics. And he really didn't get too many of his own solo appearances until 1985. But his origins are that he was originally a circus acrobat, I believe, Boston Brand, who was murdered while in the middle of his Daredevil act. That's how he got the nickname Deadman, was because he would always do the most extreme stunts, and he would never die exactly. So part of his whole deal is that he was forced to roam the earth. And I think it was just until he could find his killer. It's been so long since I've actually read up on Deadman. My mind's just fuzzy on a lot of the details, but for a supporting character, he's pretty cool in his own right. Kind of like the Spectre and Etrigan in that regard. But you have the figure here. He was in a nice little window box, so you got a chance to see the figure in all of its glory by itself. This is the main difference, that you really can't explain the price point that DC puts these at, but you can to a certain extent. Now, unlike a lot of the imports figures, you don't see like at least 10 extra hands Deadman only comes with two standard here, balled up fists, along with these two extra unballed fists. They're like making a grabbing motion. And then you have this little interesting accessory piece right here that I'll get to in a minute. But give you a closer look of Deadman as well here. Now, he's depicted from Brightest Day, but this is pretty much his standard look, how he was depicted for pretty much the entirety of his existence. The only differences that he's ever made was when he was in a full skeletal form, when he was made a cameo appearance in Kingdom Come in 1996, which they referenced when they made him a Black Lantern in the Blackest Night storyline. One last little interesting thing about the packaging, then we're going to move on to the figure, is that you get this little booklet here that kind of shows off how the figure is supposed to be. And then we can kind of see here how Deadman's little accessory, this thing right here, is meant to fit on the character. Now, it's supposed to fit over any 6-inch figure. So you just slip it on here. They use Batman example, and it's supposed to look something like this. I brought a figure just for purposes of seeing how that would look, just to experiment with. You can also see how to take off the hands. You also get Batman on the side here. When you open the booklet up, you see Mr. Miracle and Green Arrow. Alright, rattled on enough about the packaging. Let's go ahead and take him out. They use an interesting new, looks like they use an interesting new type of twisty tie here. It kind of reminds me of the same stuff I used to see when I worked at Kmart. Kind of like the weird tagging system they had, where you just put a gun through the clothes and that would keep them in place. And there's that hand. Go ahead and take, there you can see the little piece right here that he comes with as his accessory. To be honest, when I saw that he had that piece, that's what kind of made Deadman go up on my radar a bit. I had the DC Universe Classics version, and I thought that was a pretty cool one, though I didn't care too much for the screaming head too much. Time to get some scissors out for this real quick. But as I said, I had the DC Universe Classics version. That was pretty cool, though I didn't care too much for the screaming head. I'm not too big on those kind of head sculpts for figures. Certain characters it worked for, like when they did the same thing for Brock Lesnar, or the gritted teeth for Batman, which works for certain things, but it doesn't work for just having like vanilla pose. And Deadman, he did always do like his anguish things too, but he wasn't exactly like a pained, anguished character that often. He was always, kind of like a calm, cool, floating spirit. It just seems like, they could have done a better sculpt when they did that version of him. Could have probably gotten a box cutter for this, but let's see. Almost had it. Letting this out. The cool thing too about what DC Collectibles have been doing, excuse me, is that they've also changed up their articulation. But you're going to see how this looks. So, as you can see here, this is Deadman. Whoop. This aside for now. And, part of the beef that a lot of people have been having with the figure has been, of course he's on the tiny side. And the example that I brought over was Raza Al Ghul from the Movie Masters line. Anybody that's been collecting those know for a fact these are always on the smaller end of the spectrum. Realistic proportions, just being more realistic in general, which means that if you have Movie Masters, your DC icons will be in scale with the Movie Masters figures. Moving Raws out. I'm just terrified to move this too much, just because the legendary fact of the matter is that DC Direct and DC Collectibles had issues in the past where they were using clear plastic pegs for their figures, so breakage was going to happen pretty predominantly. But let's see how he's going to move up here. Again, Pharaoh did a pretty good job on covering a lot of the articulation details, so I'm not going to go over him too much. But Deadman looks like he's got, pretty solid movement there, and full bicep rotation there. His head doesn't have much head movement, which is kind of disappointing, as you can probably see. He can look up just like that enough, and just enough like that. Well, it gets fantastic looking down motion, as you can probably tell there. But you can't because of his collar. But he does look down pretty good. Nice bicep rotation. Nice movement right there. And nice double joints in the arms. Now, the hips was always a major point of contention with a lot of people, just because originally they had the thigh cuts right about right here in the prototype, but they somehow decided not to go with that. Instead, focusing on a mid abdominal, I want to say thoracic crunch, which we'll get to. But it looks like Deadman's got decent amount right here. Can't go forward like that, but he can go outwards, and he can go out like that. So if I were to, for instance, have Deadman in a nice relaxing pose like this, or not relaxing, but doing enough where he could be walking, even though Deadman mostly floated rather than walked, could always end up looking something like this, for example. Now, I think this is something they will have to work on, but you can kind of see, well, it'll probably be too dark, but you can kind of see the little ball joint they got in there for the range of motion. A little bit similar to what I want to say NECA does, even though NECAs tend to get a little bit better range. Now, the thoracic joint was always something too that a lot of fans have issues with, as far as the detail on that goes. Yeah, sorry, I repeat myself. I didn't script this enough. I'm just trying to like blaze through it as much as I can before a guest comes in. But we're gonna try and see. It goes about that much in, and goes about that far back. Again, I'm not really gonna stress test that, just because again, just past experiences with DC collectibles. Now, the thoracic joint here, we're gonna see how that's gonna look. And yep, it's pretty immobile. When I get home, or at least later on, I'm going to try and do a follow up and see if I could boil this joint free and see what will happen. Because again, it's nearly impossible to move that. It's kind of a shame too, but what can you do? Something they are going to have to work on as the line goes forward. Some paint wear too is coming off as I'm moving the joint here on the left foot, but these hands pretty good. I think with Deadman, it's a figure you don't really have to worry too much about. Um, just because, in terms of standing, he primarily floats, like I said before. So if you had him, you could always have him doing like this little motion as he's drifting over all the characters of the DC universe. Or actually, let me switch the hands out so I can do it like how I remember. Pegs are pretty nice and thick, very similar to what Hasbro does for Marvel Legends, so you don't have to worry too much about them breaking. I had this issue earlier with the NECA Adam West Batman where the pegs were frozen. But once you make that switch, just rotate it around a little bit to get it nice and in the pocket there, and it's pretty good. And I'm gonna go ahead and switch the other one out. Once again, get a good grip. They switch out pretty cool and pretty easily. Dig in the pocket there, and probably have him doing like this little move here. you know, pretty customary of Deadman. Now, as I said before, this was the accessory that kind of sold me on it. One of Deadman's main powers has been that he's able to phase into another corporeal body, that is a living body, and take them over for an inordinate amount of time. Uh, One of the times he did this was he was able to take over Etrigan the Demon to relay some information to Batman, uh, not Speedy, Arsenal, and Black Canary in regards to what happened to Green Arrow in the Quiver storyline from about 15 years ago, as written by Kevin Smith. He also used to do this a lot back in the old days, especially when he was working with Batman. And the way DC designed this is that you get a portion of them. So this piece right here, well, the whole thing, is supposed to slip over any 6-inch scale figure. Now, I think if you had a smaller 7-inch figure, you could probably do the same thing too. But suppose this is that's how it's supposed to be according to the instructions. Now, I'm going to take Ra's al Ghul here. I'm going to see how it's supposed to fit, and it's going to be, well, let's get his head looking right. And I don't know why, I didn't have any specific reason why I chose Ra's al Ghul, by the way, it just was nearby, and fit him over the head. Probably should have chosen like a better, kind of a better figure to do this with, but let's see. Ah, yeah, you gotta line. Looks like if you line it up just right, it could work. But the plastic rubber material of it means it won't sit as right as it should. And yeah, if you line it up just perfect, starting from where the chin is right here, you can get it to sit just about right. So that way you could have Deadman. Looks like he's drifting into somebody, taking them over. But, it's a cool little nod to one of his powers because as he stands by himself, Deadman's not really one of the most interesting of characters at all. That's no lie. But once you actually explore elements of his powers, you do have something cool to go with there. You know, all y'all enjoy these reviews here and think I'm about to get busy. Leave me a comment, shout out, anything. Hopefully you found this useful. Till then, see y'all later.